But if you limit your options to 5 or 6 people, chances are you are going to make stronger connections and you're going to want to say, hey, I actually do have the time to get to know you and I do have the time to meet you. Like, I just think Hinge is trying to position itself with this as a more serious dating site.
Something that's come out over the weekend are some advances in the world of online dating.
Do we call it advances?
I think it is. A technological improvement, one might say.
A dating app advance.
Yeah, specifically on advancement. Specifically on Hinge. If you are in the world of online dating at the moment, and this has been something that I think every single person who is online dating has experienced, it's when you send a message and you get no reply. The feeling of dissatisfaction, the feeling of exhaustion, the lack of encouragement that comes when you are matching with people online but you're getting absolutely no response from them. And
But I feel like that's the core of online dating.
Well, is it the core of online dating?
Yeah, I'm not saying it should be, but I was on the dating apps for like 10, 12 years. And yeah, the number of times that you write to someone and they just don't write back even though you've matched. Having said that, I did the same thing. People would write to me and I'd be like, meh, and just leave them on unread.
So you guys might remember we just did an episode recently with Therapy Jeff. It was called Why is Dating So Hard Right Now? And we really got into the nitty gritty of dating. If you are single, please go and listen to that episode. We have also done multiple episodes with Logan Ury. She is the director and relationship scientist behind Hinge. So she's worked with Hinge for a very, very long time. And this advancement that's been brought in with Hinge is specifically to deter people and stop them from leaving people on red and not answering messages and just kind of like collecting matches without actually engaging with those matches. So you guys might know that in 2017, they brought in a feature which was your turn to remind you to write back to the people that you've matched with.
Yeah, so you would have been out of the dating game when they brought that in, Laura, but I unfortunately wasn't. So it was annoying because you'd be on your matches and you could have 100. No, you're not swiping. You've matched, right? So you're in your like catalog of matches, and you could have 100 matches that you've just ignored that have written to you that you haven't written back. So it's like a message alert. This alert used to come down and say your turn, like your turn to write back, as in like, hey, they're still waiting. It was a nice way to be like, they're still waiting for you, but you could just ignore it. So you could leave a match there for 3 years if you want.
Yeah.
Like for any amount of time.
Because maybe you've changed your mind. Maybe you got a little bit swipe happy and match with people who actually you're not that interested in. And then you get the match and you're like, oh, actually not sure. Well, they've brought in a new change. So it's called Your Turn Limits. And what that's going to do is it's going to prevent users from matching with new people if you have 8 or more unanswered messages in your queue. So if you are somebody who uses online dating as a way of basically like people shopping or window shopping, but you don't have any intention of actually messaging those people, if you have 8 or more messages that are left unread, you will be blocked from being able to continue to swipe until you either write back to 1 or more of those people in the queue, or you go through and delete those matches that you have left unread. So when you hear about this, I mean, there's definitely pros and cons and we'll get into it, but it also sounds like it's going to slow down that kind of like swipe, swipe, swipe rhythm that a lot of people get into. And it's going to create a lot more admin for people to actually go in and do something with the matches that they've received.
I actually think it's great. That is, as someone who, like I said, I had like 100 people sitting there at a time.
A multiple matcher.
Well, yeah, it's because you want the options, right? And sometimes you're bored. Sometimes you want to talk to people. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'll keep them there as a backup. But at the end of the day, like you're on there wasting people's time as much as you're wasting your own time. And Logan said something that I think is brilliant. It makes so much sense. So psychology research shows that when we are presented with too many options, we often experience analysis paralysis and decide to make no decision at all. Your Turn Limits nudges you to make the decision and help get you closer to finding your person. But it's so true. Think of how overwhelming it is when you have so many options presented to you. The easiest thing is to throw your hands up and be like, it's the too hard basket. But if you limit your options or your basket of people to 5 or 6 people, chances are you are going to make stronger connections and you're going to want to say, hey, I actually do have the time to get to know you and I do have the time to meet you. But when there's 100 people saying, hey, how are you? How was your weekend? What are you up to? What's your favorite color? Like, you're like, fuck, I couldn't be bothered.
And also, I mean, we've spoken about it so much, this idea of dating fatigue. If you're having the same small talk with 50 people at one time, I mean, that's probably a lot of people. The fatigue is going to hit you a lot faster. But what I think is so interesting about this is, and we've spoken about Hinge quite a while ago, this idea, and their brand slogan is designed to be deleted. And at the time when we were talking about this, I think we kind of took the stance a little bit of, well, that sounds like bullshit, because at the end of the day, it is a company that makes its money on having you continuously swipe. So this new limit that they're imposing does seem contradictory to it being just like this like machine of wanting people to keep being in the endless dating world. It actually feels like it's an app with a little bit more of a conscience behind it. But I don't think, is it going to make a big difference to the way that people engage with online dating? No, I think people are still going to window shop. They're still going to swipe for validation. They're still going to accrue loads of matches. I don't think that this is going to stop them from doing that. It does just mean that there's going to be more admin. It's going to have to slow them down a little bit so that they can't just continuously swipe.
Well, Hinge has done some trials and they actually have some stats. Almost half, 48% of users with your turn limits said the feature helps increase people's ability to focus on quality over quantity. Meanwhile, 45% said the feature helps focus on current matches, and the same amount said the feature helps them be more thoughtful with current matches. So I think it is going in the right direction. But this is why I think it's brilliant. I remember this one specific example. I remember going on one day and being like, I'm so bored. Like, I'm just going to go and scroll my matches and see who's out there.
Go back. I'll dip back into the pool that I never wrote to.
I went back 2 years. There was a match a conversation from 2 years that I hadn't written back to. And this poor guy, I hadn't written back.
I reckon he was probably fine.
So I wrote back to him. I said, hey, sorry for the slow response. Been busy. Last decade, got married. I was like, sorry for the slow response. Would you want to catch up still? It was 2 years later.
Was he like, yes? Or
I've never had he was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, tonight? And he's like, yeah, all right. Anyway, realized why I stopped talking to him. It was the worst date of my life. He was so boring. And I was like, this is why we stopped talking. This is why you should unmatch people.
You should unmatch them. But once 100%. Again, admin, that's the problem. Look, I think that this is a hot person problem. That's all this is.
What do you mean?
It's a hot person problem.
No, it's not.
It is. This is, hear me out. Only hot people accrue that many matches.
No, they don't.
They do.
No, they don't.
Jono's spoken by a hot person. Jono's over there in the corner. Jono, you're also a hot person, just FYI. But Jono's over there in the corner nodding away like, yep, it's true.
No, it's not.
Because online dating, as much as it is the base of superficial, that we judge people based on the way they look in their photos, people who have good profiles, who also have, aesthetically pleasing photos of themselves are going to accrue more matches. Like, I understand that is unfair, but it is the way that the world works. So people who are more attractive, I mean, look at the most swiped on people on dating apps. They're all fucking hot, all of them.
Of course, because it's a looks base, but that doesn't mean that people that are not a 10 aren't accruing a lot of matches as well. Like,
no, totally.
Every category is accruing matches. Like, every person still accrues them. But of course, the supermodel is getting the super hot people and I don't even want to say the rest of it. I feel like I'm the not so hot people. But like the 10 out of 10s, everyone's swiping right on them. But at the end of the day, have you seen how people online date now? They don't even look at their screen. They're out talking to their friends and they just swipe right. They just match people because then they're like, I'll go through it later, which is half the problem, which comes back full circle to why I think Hinge is like, okay, well, you're wasting people's time. So let's say 8 at a time. And now it's like a tag team. You have to tag someone in to allow a new match or like keep responding. I think it's great. It's cutting the bullshit.
I definitely agree. I definitely think it is a great feature, but I do think that a lot of people who use online dating are guilty of matching with people and not replying to them. And I know it's frustrating when you've matched with someone who you actually felt excited about matching, but I would also put money on the fact that you've done it to someone as well, right? I think we've
100%.
All done it where we've matched with people and then haven't really been that invested or, who knows? It doesn't even come down to being invested. It's got to do with like where you're at in your own life and what you've got going on. Some people genuinely just need the ego boost. But I kind of look at online dating as very superficial to start with, because I think you only owe someone something once you've actually met up with them in real life and you've actually invested time into them.
I disagree with that.
I don't think you owe someone a reply just because you match with them. Do you? Like, I don't think that every single person you've matched with, you owe a reply to.
We have had this discussion before a few times, actually. We disagree with it. If you've just matched someone,
You had 200 unmessaged matches, Britt.
No, but what I'm saying, no, that's what I'm saying. If you just match with someone, then no, you don't owe them anything. But if you have invested time and they have invested time and you've been speaking, if you have been speaking for 2 weeks and you have built this connection, you've got this rapport, you've got this banter, you've been making plans, then if you don't want to see them or speak to them anymore, I do think you owe them something because you've invested a lot of yourself emotionally and mentally and physically, your time, even if you haven't met them.
I totally agree with that though. I just don't agree with if you match with someone that you owe them a reply. I think, this idea of having an 8 match limit to stop people from just matching with people willy-nilly. I wonder if are we as people who are on there swiping, not me specifically, but I can relate to this. I spent many years online dating before I met Matt. Like I fucking dated everyone in Sydney to the point where I would be out. I would be walking the Bondi Promenade and I'd be like, I know that guy. No, I don't. I've just seen him on Tinder 4 times. That would happen on the reg.
Yeah.
So I have matched with people who haven't replied to me and I have matched people who I haven't replied to. But I kind of don't feel like I owed them anything. I don't feel like they owed me anything. I wasn't so emotionally invested in a match that I expected them to reply. Obviously, it was exciting when someone who I kind of was like, oh, he's hot and like that could be, something. Yeah, I guess like I didn't feel the level of disappointment from not being replied to. And I wonder if most people, and I would love to ask it as a poll, like, how do you feel when you match with people and you don't get the replies? Is there a level of disappointment? Does this affect you in a way that you are happy that this has been implemented?
I think there is for sure. Because, it can be really soul-crushing online dating, 100%. And if you've matched with someone that you thought was a vibe, then you've written to them, but they can't be bothered to write back. It plays with your mind. It plays with your confidence and your self-esteem. And if that's happened to you 50 times, then you're like, well, what's wrong with me? Like, why are you matching me, not talking to me? Have you matched me? You start to get in your head, right? Have you matched me and then seen something you don't like? Have you gone onto my Instagram? Have you, I just think Hinge is trying to position itself with this as a more serious dating site. And that is what this your turn limits is doing, because it's saying like, if you actually want to make a connection, then you've got to pick carefully because you've got 8 people that you can talk to. I think it's really, really good.
The only thing about this though that isn't so much of a deterrent, like a real deterrent, is that it's not forcing people to actually speak to each other, right? You can still go on and you can still swipe away. It's just stopping you from accruing more than 8 unanswered messages. So it just means you have to go in and then delete them. At least by deleting them, that then means that you've unmatched with that person. But it doesn't actually force you to write to that person. It doesn't actually force you to speak to that person. So if you are someone who is, quote unquote, people window shopping, you can still do that and you can still get the same buzz or the same satisfaction out of it. It just means that you're going to have to go in there every day or so and clear out your inbox or at least look at that person's profile again in order to make that decision.
I think it's just encouraging more conscious dating.
The only other stat I want to throw in here, because I found this really, really fascinating, is that in 2023, there was a research study that was done on online dating. And when matches, where one person responded to the other person's first message within a day, was 72% more likely to result in a date. So if you get a response from someone within 24 hours of sending a message, then that is like such a significant impact in you actually getting it out of the text and into real life dating, which I feel like people realize that anyway. But I think if you haven't received a response in 48 hours, like the likelihood of getting a committed and excited response from that person is pretty fucking slim.
It's because we're smarter daters now. We have the benefit of education in relationships and dating, like all the podcasts and the books you read, the specialists we hear from. We are so much more educated now about what we want and what it means. So back in the day, you would sit on a match for, if someone didn't write back to you for 2 weeks, you'd make these excuses, right? Like they're probably busy, which they could be. But now it doesn't fly. We're like, we know what we want. We're confident in ourselves. I want someone that knows what they want. I want someone that's going to write back to me. So I feel like with how much information we're given from podcasts like this, specialists like Logan Ury, we know now what's going to fly and what's not going to fly. And I think we cut the shit a lot quicker than we used to. Maybe that also comes with age and experience. Like maybe it's just that comes back to that dating fatigue where you've done it for 10 years and now you're like, I don't want to wait for 2 weeks anymore because I don't have time to wait for 2 weeks anymore.
Yeah, but that's specifically you, Britt, in terms of like dating. There's loads of people who are at different phases of their dating. I just think that there's this level of excitement. Like if you haven't received a message back from someone for multiple days/weeks or 2 fucking years, you're not actually that excited about me. I'm just like the bottom of the barrel in terms of messages. Like you've obviously worked your way through all the people that you've matched with, and then I'm kind of like the last person you've sent that to. Why is Keeshia looking like she's just had a
epiphany?
I think I've just had a bit of an epiphany because most of the dating apps other than Bumble are all owned by the same people, Match Group. Maybe they're trying to rebrand so that they're more distinguished. To me, it seems as though they're trying to make Hinge this more like conscious dating, like you're actually trying to find a relationship, right? Because they've only brought the limits in on this one.
like the Bumble of Match Group?
Yeah, but I mean, Bumble is the only one who's owned separately. So if you compare it to like Tinder or Plenty of Fish or some of the other ones that they own, because you know how people are like, oh, all the apps are the same and blah, blah, blah. Well, they're all owned by the same person, really. Maybe because they do have control over the large majority of them, they're just trying to distinguish that if you're after a relationship, you should go on Hinge. If you're after a hookup, you should go on Tinder. I mean, I don't really know what the difference between all of them are, but maybe it's actually just their way of trying to distinguish a bit more of a brand around Hinge.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think it'll be very interesting to hear from people who are like on the ground and in the trenches of online dating and see if this actually makes any significant change or whether it's just a little bit more of a PR stunt to get people excited about the possibilities of finding a relationship on Hinge.
Which it is possible. I'm one of them.